Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Anantagoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
Mm.
ISKCON BBD founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem
Yeah.
Se Guru Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveti Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Krishna Krishna Namaste Saraswati Devi Govindani Pacharane Devashesha Shunivadi Paschadadesha Karane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, The Status Quo, and today we'll be doing Text 1 and Text 2. This is a great honor. First day of the month and first verse of a brand new canto starting. Very exciting. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evam Etat Pura Prishto Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila Kshatravanam Pravishtena Tyaktva Swagriham Ridhimat. Could you go to the translation, please, Mother? Shukadev Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of his grace Maitreya Rishi.
Wow.
And now we'll go to text 2. Yadva ayam mantra kridvo bhagavan akileshwara Poravendra griham hitva praviveshat masatkritam. Yadva ayam mantra kridvo bhagavan akileshwara Poravendra griham hitva praviveshat masatkritam. Yadva ayam mantra kridvo bhagavan akileshwara Poravendra griham hitva praviveshat masatkritam. Everyone can chant, please.
Yadva ayam mantra kridvo bhagavan akileshwara Poravendra graham hitva praviveshatmasat kritam.
Yadva ayam mantra kridvo Bhagavan Akileshwara Pauravendra Graham Hitva Praviveshatmasat Kritam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yadva ayam mantra kitva Bhagavan Akhileshwara Pauravenda Graham Hidva Prabhivesh Atmasat Kritam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yadvayam mantra kridvo Bhagavan Akhileshwara Paurvendra griham hitva praviveshat masat kritam. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else?
Yadva ayam mantra kritvo Bhagavan Akhileshwara Pauravendra griham hitva praviveshatmasat kritam.
Very good. Word for word translation. Yat, the house. Why? What else is there to say? Ayam Shri Krishna. Mantra Krit minister. Va, you people. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Akila Ishvara, the Lord of everything. Pauravendra, Duryodhana. Griham, house. Hitva, giving up. Pravivesha, entered. Atmasat, identify with oneself. Kritam, so accepted. Translation. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. According to the Gaudiya Achintya Beda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is also Sri Krishna. For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is non-different from Sri Krishna, Tadam Vrindavanam, because at Vrindavan, the Lord enjoys the transcendental bliss of his internal potency. Similarly, the house of the Pandavas was also the source of transcendental bliss for the Lord. It is mentioned here that the Lord identified the house with his own self. Thus, the house of the Pandavas was as good as Vrindavan, and Vidura should not have given up that place of transcendental bliss. Therefore, the reason for his quitting the house was not exactly family misunderstanding. Rather, Vidura took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. For a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is insignificant. Such disturbances, however, are sometimes favorable for higher realization, and therefore Vidura took advantage of a family misunderstanding in order to meet Maitreya Rishi. Back to text 1, please. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evam Etat Pura Prishto Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila Kshatravanam Pravishtena Tyaktva Swagriham Riddhimat. Translation. Shukadev Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of His Grace Maitreya Rishi. Yadva ayam mantra kridvo Bhagavan Akileshwara Pauravendra griham hitva praviveshat masat kritam. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Since this is the beginning of the canto, I'm going to read briefly this summary of the third canto given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He writes, in the 33 chapters of the third canto, Sarga, the creation of the totality of matter with elements manifesting from Prakriti by the glance of Vishnu, is described. Having already shown that the Bhagavatam was first revealed by the Lord to Brahma and Narada, it is again revealed by Shesha to the Kumaras. The conversation between Vidura and Uddhava continues for 4 chapters. 8 chapters deal with Sarga and Visarga. 7 chapters describe the pastimes of Varaha. 1 chapter describes the Visarga in summary, and 4 chapters describe Kapila. 9 chapters describe his teachings. This completes the 3rd chapter. In the 1st chapter, giving up his elder brother elder brother, Vidura departs and goes on pilgrimage. There he meets Uddhava and asks questions, though he was unsteady in hearing because of separation from the Lord. Uddhava answered 2 or 3 of the questions asked by Parikshit in the 8th chapter of the 2nd canto. Shukadev, considering that the questions of Parikshit were previously asked by Vidura to Maitreya, decided to answer Parikshit's questions by first describing the introduction which gave rise to their conversation. So this is why this 3rd canto and much of the 4th canto is conversations with Vidura. Shukadev Goswami is using this method, and it's used many places in the Bhagavatam, that someone asks a question. Actually, Krishna himself does it in the 11th canto in the Uddhava Gita. Krishna himself does it to answer Arjuna's question, and in the 7th canto we hear about being directed to the questions between between Narada Muni and Yudhishthira, so many places. So this is also going on here. And what's the question or questions being asked? This goes back to the previous canto in the 8th chapter. What are the questions? 8th chapter of the 2nd canto, text 1. King Parikshit inquired from Shukadev Goswami, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before whom did he speak? The king said, I wish to know. Narrations concerning the Lord who possesses wonderful potencies are certainly auspicious for living beings in all planets. O greatly fortunate Shukadev Goswami, please continue narrating Srimad Bhagavatam so that I can place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna, and being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish my body. So Parikshit actually in that 2nd canto, he asked many questions about creation and the duty of a man about to die, and the nature of the universal form and how to meditate, and so many things he asked. But this is the summary of it, that he's asking, speak to me Srimad Bhagavatam. I want to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastimes of the Lord, so that I can be steady at the time of death and attain the goal of life. So this is the primary question being asked, and we're going to be hearing about the answer to that by hearing all the wonderful pastimes and amazing philosophy in the 3rd canto. So let's look at the first text first of all. I have it right here. After renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of his grace Maitreya Rishi. So Vidura, he left his home, and that home was so amazing and so opulent. First of all, materially opulent. Riddhimat means full with all prosperity. So his home is the home, the household of the Pandavas. So what could be more wonderful and more opulent than that? So Riddhimat, that home possessed all wealth and all prosperity. But Riddhimat also means not just material prosperity, but it possessed all spiritual perfection, all mystic opulences, all spiritual realization was completely full and completely saturated in this house. This is Riddhimat, full with all this prosperity and opulences. But still, Vanam, actually, these 2 verses, this 1st and 2nd verse, are nice because there's like a nice sort of, not a contradiction, but a tension between them. That the 1st verse is saying, this place is so opulent and wonderful, and yet Vana Pravishta, yet Vidura left it all, as though we're nothing, to enter into the forest. And Prabhupada explained, we heard a little bit in the purport, that it wasn't just that Vidura left, because Duryodhana hurt his feelings, criticizing him for his lineage or whatever. And he had his, he hurt feelings, so he ran away because his feelings were hurt. That's not really exactly the reason. He went to hear this amazing katha and discussion with Uddhava, and then with Maitreya Rishi, who's called Maitreya Bhagavan. So he's so qualified, Maitreya is so qualified, he's called here Maitreya Bhagavan. Bhagavan, we know Bhagavan means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who possesses all opulences in full. But a great devotee can also be called Bhagavan. Narada Muni is addressed sometimes as Bhagavan. Lord Brahma is addressed sometimes as Bhagavan, not because they've become the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but because they're such great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he imbues within them his opulences of knowledge, of potency, of different kinds of greatness are imbued within them. So therefore they can also be understood as Bhagavan, because they are manifesting these opulences that have been granted them by the Lord. And Maitreya specifically had this opulence of knowledge and renunciation. So therefore he was so qualified that Vidura was even willing to leave the Vaikuntha-like home of the Pandavas. Another reason he might have left is that a great devotee, a Madhyama Acarya at least, and that means a devotee who preaches, his principle is Ishware Tadadineshu Balisheshu Dvisatsucha Prema Maitri Kripo Peksha Yakaroti Samadhyama. That a devotee who preaches, and Vidura is an exceptional preacher. He spends so much time and energy preaching even to his brother. But one of the qualities is that he deals differently with different persons. He gives his love to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He gives his friendship to the other devotees, like the Pandavas and all the devotees in Hastinapur at the time. He had such wonderful close friendships with the Pandavas and all the people there. To those who were innocent, he tried to preach to them. And the fourth quality of the Madhyamadikari is that if someone is too much a demon, too much an offender, too much a Pashandi, that he neglects them, he goes away from them. Because if a devotee stays when someone is too offensive, then that person is actually just increasing their offenses and decreasing their chances of taking to Krishna consciousness. So a devotee may leave a place, not exactly because his feelings are hurt, but to spare the rascal non-devotees from committing additional offenses. And also because although this home was Riddhimat, full of all opulences, including material opulences, Vidura, as a great devotee, has no attachment to any of that. He's attached to his devotee family and devotee friends and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's not attracted to the material wealth of hearth and home. So therefore, him to go on pilgrimage and to hear from Maitreya, this was very easy and very natural for Vidura to do. So therefore, this verse, Vana Pravishta, he left for the forest. But in the next verse, the glorification of the household he left, making you wonder, how can he leave such a place? So this is the nature of the house he left. This is also very beautifully described. I like this very much. Oh, what else is there to say? What can you say about the house of the Pandavas? That Krishna himself is present in the house of the Pandavas as mantra krid. This is also very interesting. That the house of the Pandavas was so wonderful. Why? Because Krishna was there, just like we know Queen Kunti prayers. I can't remember the Sanskrit now, but that verse she's saying all of the villages and all of the towns and the mines and the agricultural fields, they're all appearing beautiful because of your presence. So similarly, Krishna was constantly present in the house of the Pandavas as mantra krid. Mantra krid means as their advisor. He was like the personal advisor, the personal counsel of the Pandavas, hearing their problems, giving them advice, recommending courses of action. So that's mantra krid. Now, mantra krid has another more literal meaning. Mantra krid means the one who makes or gives the mantra. So who is the person who gives the mantra? This is the guru. So Krishna is the supreme guru for the Pandavas. He's their advisor. He's their friend. He's also their guru. And mantra krit means like, we also hear in Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta vit, Veda krit, right? He's the knower of the Vedas, and he's also the compiler, the source of the Vedas. So Krishna is also the source of all the Vedic mantras. Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. Krishna is the Omkar in all the Vedas. And he also mentions the prayers, the songs of the Samaveda. That is also Krishna. So Krishna is everything. Krishna is everything, and he's also everything to the Pandavas, their friend, their advisor, their guru. This is also very beautifully described. This is in the first canto, chapter 16, text 16. Maharaj Parikshit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, who was universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc., according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. And let's see now. In the purport to that verse, Lord Krishna is everything to the unalloyed devotees like the Pandavas. The Lord was for them the supreme Lord, the spiritual master, the worshipable deity, the guide, the chariot driver, the friend, the servant, the messenger, and everything they could conceive of. And thus the Lord also reciprocated the feelings of the Pandavas. So this is Krishna in the house of the Pandavas. What a place. Yeah, okay, materially opulent, full with all mystic opulences, whatever. But this is the amazing opulence that Krishna is present there as their everything, their guide, their friend, their guru, their chariot driver, everything. So this is the amazing house of the Pandavas. And we discussed already why Vidura left. But as he is doing Vana Pravishta, then Krishna is doing also Pravishta, Praviveshatma. That as Vidura is entering the forest, so Krishna is entering the house of the Pandavas. So why is that? Because Krishna wants to go. Krishna wants to be, and Krishna is happy where his devotees are. Naham Tishtami Vaikunte. Krishna says, I think this is from some Purana, I'm not exactly sure. Naham Tishtami Vaikunte. Krishna says, you actually won't find me in Vaikunta. He's speaking sort of poetically, rhetorically here. Of course, the Supreme Lord is in Vaikunta, but in ecstasies, he's explaining, you won't find me in Vaikunta. Naham Tishtami Vaikunte. Yogidam Hridayeshuva. We know that the Lord is present in the heart of the yogis, but he says, no, you won't find me in the heart of the yogis. Where will you find me? Yad Gayanti, Yatra Gayanti Mad Bhakta, where my devotees congregate and hear and chant about me. Gayanti, sing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Madchita Madgita Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam. Katayanta Katyantas chamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. As for the devotees, their only pleasure and their only satisfaction is to get together, congregate, and have kirtan to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, to talk about Krishna. As that's the devotees' only pleasure, that's also Krishna's pleasure. So therefore he says, Yad Gayanti, Yatra Gayanti Mad Bhakta, Tatra Tishtami Narada. O Narada Muni, that's where you will find me, where my devotees are congregating in my service, in my glorification, not in Vaikuntha, not in the hearts of the yogis. So therefore, of course, Krishna was constantly at the house of the Pandavas, so intimate and so friendly and helping them as one of them at every stage. And actually, the verse says, Pravishesh Atmasat. This is also, Atmasat means that he entered the house of the Pandavas as if it were his own home. He felt that the home of the Pandavas was just like his own home. Even in normal talk, people say, oh, when you have a guest over, oh, my house is your house. Mi casa es su casa, right? People say like that. Of course, no one really means it. But Krishna actually felt like that, like the Pandavas' house was like his own house, because the relationship was so tight and the love was so close. Pravisheshat Masat Kritam. Krishna entered the house of the Pandavas as though it were his own house. And Atmasat also means, actually, Prabhupada says in the word for word translation, Atmasat, identify with oneself. That means not only he felt it was like his own house, but it was him. That house was himself. That house was actually Krishna himself. And Prabhupada starts explaining that very beautifully, very nicely in the purport. He says, according to the Gaudiya philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is also Sri Krishna. So the house of the Pandavas was designed and built and run exclusively for the devotees to serve Krishna. That was the only business of the Pandavas. So this is included within this Achitta Beta Beta conception, that house is directly Krishna himself. And Prabhupada draws the parallel. For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is non-different from Sri Krishna. Tadam Vrindavanam. So, as Vrindavan Dham is Krishna himself, the house of the Pandavas is also Krishna himself. So that means the Pandavas are living within the existence of Krishna. Just like when a devotee goes to Vrindavan, you're living within the existence of Krishna. Therefore, the devotees worship Vrindavan and want to go to Vrindavan. And last time I gave class, we spoke about this, about the five, I bring these up all the time, the 5 important activities of devotional service, the Kirtan, Sadhu Sangha, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, worshiping the deity, and Mathuravas, residing in Mathura, in Vrindavan Dham. So that's why, because Vrindavan is directly Krishna himself. Prabhupada quotes from this, Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadam Vrindavanam. That Aradhyo Bhagavan, you worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How? And who's that Bhagavan? Vrajesha Tanaya, Krishna, the son of the king Nanda Maharaj of Raja. Tadam Vrindavanam. That the land of Vrindavan is the actual object of worship for those who want to worship Krishna. Aradhyo Bhagavan Vijesha Tanayas Tadam Vrindavanam. So Vrindavan Dham is the object of worship because it's non-different from Krishna himself. That verse goes on, Ramya Kachid Upasana Vrajavadu Vargena Yakalpita. After describing the object of worship, Vrindavan Dham, what's the best means of worship? The means of worship conceived of by the gopis of Vrindavan is the best means of worship. And what's the evidence for all this? Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. That Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost evidence of everything. Therefore, Vidura left home, even though it's Krishna himself, to go and speak to Vidura so that the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also Krishna himself, could be manifested. And Prema Pumarta Mahan. And the goal of all this is developing love of Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matam Idam Tatradaro Na Para. This is the opinion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we hold this opinion with the highest respect. So this is the verse Prabhupada is referring to. Tadam Vrindavan, when he says Tadam Vrindavanam. So this Vrindavan is directly Krishna himself. And the house of the Pandavas is directly Krishna himself. That's why it's one of these 5 important activities. Because if we can touch Krishna, if we come in contact with Krishna through any of these 5 methods, our purification is so powerful and so rapid and so intense by this contact, by touching the dust of Vrindavan, by touching the holy name with our tongues and with our ears, by touching the devotees, by serving them, by hearing from them, by talking with them, by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, which is directly Krishna himself. Prabhupada said you can see Krishna directly on every page of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the deity in the temple. The deity in the temple is also directly Krishna. Therefore, the temple is Vrindavan Dham. As Vrindavan, the Goloka in the spiritual world is certainly Vrindavan Dham, and as good as Krishna and Krishna's eternal place of pastimes. So the temple where Krishna is being worshipped properly, that's also Vrindavan Dham. And the Pandavas, they made their home, their personal home, Vrindavan Dham also, or Vaikuntha, or the abode of the Lord. So those who are not living in the temple, if they make their household life, their home life, with the deity in it, being worshipped nicely, with the chanting of the holy name going on in it, with the reading and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam going on, the offering of prasad and serving of prasad, what's the other? Nam Kirtan, Sadhu Sangha, by associating with devotees. Associating with devotees in your own house means that your family members are also devotees, and you're preaching to them or being preached to by them, and discussing Bhagavatam with them. And it also means by inviting devotees over and serving them and hearing from them. So if you do all those things, then the house is the personal house, like the Pandavas, is also as good as Vaikuntha, as good as Vrindavan. So when we say like that, we say, back to Godhead, Prabhupada, that's the masthead, the banner on his magazine. Back to Godhead. He wrote one letter to the former president of India, and he said, "You may, when I say go back to Godhead, you should know that this is possible for everyone and all. You may think me a madman when I say that I can go back to Godhead, but no, it's possible for everyone and all." So go back to Godhead in one sense means we live our life of devotional service. And when and if we become sufficiently perfected, sufficiently prema pamarta mahan, in love with Krishna, then after this life, we go back to the spiritual world. It also means that in this life, we spend whatever it costs now, $1,000 to fly to India in a very uncomfortable plane, and you take the uncomfortable bus, train, or taxi ride, and you go to Vrindavan, and you're in the spiritual world. Or every week or every day, you go to the temple, and again, you're back. That's also back to Godhead. You're in the spiritual world. Or you make your house the spiritual world. There's that beautiful song, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu Bhajana Anukula. He says that pure devotional service to the feet of the devotees, and all the favorable activities of bhajan, these give the highest perfection, and they're the root of the creeper of devotional service. And then a few verses later, he explains, so what is the power? What is the result of doing this? This Shuddha Bhakata Charanarenu, serving Krishna, serving the devotees, performing auspicious and favorable devotional service in your house. Ye dina grihe bhajana deki grihe te goloka bhaya. He says, one day I was doing these activities of devotional service, and I personally witnessed my house transformed into Goloka Vrindavan. So that's Bhakti Vinod Thakur's experience. This is the experience of the Pandavas, that their home is as good as the spiritual world because Krishna is present there. Where Krishna is, that's the spiritual world. Where Krishna manifests, That's the holy Dham. So we do all these things. We hope after the end of this life to return to the spiritual world. If we have time, facility, money, we fly to India and we go visit Vrindavan Dham, Mayapur, the holy Dhams. We go to the temple, we associate with devotees, we make our house a temple as far as possible. So all of these things are Krishna's holy Dham. And to complete this sort of idea, let's see what time it is. There's a beautiful section of the Bhagavatam from the 10th canto. Also, because we're getting a little bit closer to Janmashtami. These festivals are arriving in a few weeks, a couple of months. So this is a beautiful section I read every year around Janmashtami, where Prabhupada and the Bhagavatam explains the meaning of Dham. And we heard some of it. Dham in the spiritual world, Vrindavan Dham manifested on this earth in the, what is it, the 84 or 64 krosha, so many acres, so many miles in India, in UP, and I think part is in Haryana is there. And also the temple is there, Prabhupada called the temples of Krishna like embassies of the spiritual world. Even legally, if I go to another country, and if I go to the American embassy, although it's in another country, legally and politically, it's considered that I'm in America, even though it's in another country. So the temple is like that, and our duty is also to make our home like that. But Prabhupada explains even more amazing example of the manifestation of Krishna's Dham. This is from the 10th canto, Prayers by the Demigods, chapter 2 of the 10th canto. Text 17. Sabibrat Purusham Dhamma. There's that word Dhamma. Sabibrat Purusham Dhamma, Brajamano Yataravi, Durasado Tidur Darsho, Bhutanam Sambabhuvaha. While carrying the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the core of his heart, Vasudeva bore the Lord's transcendently illuminating effulgence, and thus he became as bright as the sun. He was therefore very difficult to see or approach through sensory perception. Indeed, he was unapproachable and unperceivable even for such formidable men as Kamsa, and not only for Kamsa, but for all living entities. So, Sabibrat Purusham Dhamma. That literally means that he carried the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the Dham, within the abode of his heart. And Prabhupada explains it in the purport. He says the word Dhamma is significant. Dhamma refers to the place where the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Dhamma Swena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahe. In the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no influence of material energy. Dhamma Swena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam. Any place where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present by his name, form, qualities, or paraphernalia immediately becomes a Dham. Remember, we heard in today's purport, Prabhupada said anything that's connected with Krishna or anything that gives pleasure to Krishna, this is also directly Krishna himself. So read that again. Any place where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present by his name, form, qualities, or paraphernalia immediately becomes a Dham. For example, we speak of Vrindavan Dham, Dwaraka Dham, and Mathura Dham, because in these places, the name, fame, qualities, and paraphernalia of the Supreme Godhead are always present. Similarly, if one is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to do something, the core of his heart becomes a Dham, and thus he becomes so extraordinarily powerful that not only his enemies, but also people in general are astonished to observe his activities. So this was Vasudeva. He was in the prison, in the dark, dank, nasty prison. But because Krishna was present within his heart, and we remember this 10th canto, He was within the heart of Vasudeva, and he transferred from his heart to the heart of his wife, and then Krishna appeared. So his heart became a dham, became a holy place, just like Goloka in the spiritual world, Vrindavan Dham in India, the temple, the house of the devotee. So the devotee's heart, we've gone from the infinite Goloka to the however many square miles or acres in Vrindavan, to a temple, to a personal house, even if you're living in some little apartment. These are all Krishna's dham, but even the devotee's heart, even the heart of a devotee becomes a dham. And he explains further in the next purport. When Vasudeva was sustaining the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, he appeared just like the glowing sun, whose shining rays are always unbearable and scorching to the common man. The form of the Lord, situated in the pure, unalloyed heart of Vasudeva, is not different from the original form of Krishna. The appearance of the form of Krishna anywhere, and specifically within the heart, is called Dhamma. Dhamma refers not only to Krishna's form, but to his name, his form, his qualities, and his paraphernalia. Everything becomes manifest simultaneously. So I think that explanation and that purport by Srila Prabhupada really puts a cherry on top of the sundae of this understanding of Krishna's abode, Goloka, that in one sense we say, oh, Goloka is so far away. And of course, in many religions, this is a conception, right? The Christian idea of heaven is, oh, it's up above the clouds, it's far, far away, it's many miles away, it's, unreachable. And it is, but in another sense, it's so intimately available that it's present on this planet, and it's present in your city, and it's present in your home, and it's present in your heart if you have the sufficient quality of devotional service. So this also explains how is Vidura, who loved Krishna so much, how is he able to leave this home of the Pandavas, where Krishna himself is present there as the dearmost friend and advisor and everything, and it's as good as the spiritual world. The only way he was able to leave was because Krishna was in his heart, and he could take that dham with him anywhere and everywhere he went. Early in ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada was talking to his disciples, and he was telling them about how before he came to America, he was living in Vrindavan. And he said to them, oh, when you go to India and you visit Vrindavan Dham and you see how nice it is, you'll never understand how I could have left such an amazing, wonderful place to come to this nasty Western world. So the only way Prabhupada was able to do it was because he carried Vrindavan in his heart. He had Krishna in his heart. And that's why, just like Vasudeva was so effulgent from Krishna in his heart, that Kamsa and ordinary people, they couldn't even look at him. So when people came before, at least those with a little sincerity, and especially those who went on to become his servants, when people came before Srila Prabhupada, they were also amazed and astounded in the same way. And of course, Prabhupada's individual greatness is there, but the basis of that greatness was that Krishna was in his heart. Let's see, because I don't go to Mangalartik enough, I'm hesitating to remember. Samsara Dava Nalalita Loka, right? That the spiritual master is the cloud that brings the rain of Krishna's mercy, Gana Ganatvam. The spiritual master is the cloud that carries the rain of Krishna's mercy and showers it on the disciple. So this is why the cloud is glorious. This is why the cloud can put out the burning forest fire, because it carries the water from the ocean. In one sense, you could say, oh, it's not the cloud itself. It's just it's the water that does it, and the water comes from the ocean. But without the cloud, the water from the ocean won't reach the forest fire. So therefore, we're so amazed and astounded by the accomplishments of Srila Prabhupada. And therefore, we worship these great devotees because they're carrying Krishna within their hearts. And that's also open to us to make our heart a fit sitting place for Krishna. Krishna, again, Naham Tishtami Vaikunte Yoginam Hridayeshu. He's not in Vaikuntha, he's not in the hearts of the yogis. But if we fill our heart with Krishna Katha, then Krishna will say, oh, this is a place that I want to, just like Pravisheshat Masat, right? That Krishna entered the house of the Pandavas just as though it were his own home. So we want to make our hearts so nice and so clean and so appealing and so full of Krishna consciousness that Krishna will think, oh, yes, this is as good as this heart of this devotee is as good as my Goloka Vrindavan. I want to enter there and I want to reside there. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kind attention. If there's any questions or comments or discussion, we can do that now.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mother.
Nice class. Yeah, like you said, wherever the Kirtan is going on, wherever the Sadhu Sangha is there, so there Krishna is there, of course.
Yes.
We need not say that, no, I didn't go to Golok Vrindavan and Vaikuntha and I couldn't see Krishna. But if we arrange all those atmosphere, everything, then Krishna will be there, definitely.
Right.
That is what Pandavas did, So there are only 5 people, but their Kauravas were 100 people. But still, they're little bit hard, little bit that house and everything. That Krishna like that.
Right.
So that is a big lesson for us, for me, that wherever we make the atmosphere, that pleasant and kirtan and other things, Krishna will be definitely there.
Right. I think even sometimes Prabhupada would use those words. He would talk about Vaikuntha atmosphere. So
Yeah.
to make a Vaikuntha atmosphere, this is nice.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mother. Anything else? Question or discussion?
A nice class, nice starting today and August 1st with the Canto 3 starting. And today is first, and today is the first text we are doing.
Right.
It is very surprisingly, everything was a coincidence.
Yeah, I also thought that was a nice synchronicity. Just like Prabhupada was once talking about, a devotee said something about New Year's Day, January 1st. And Prabhupada said, our every day is New Year's. That every day is, a fresh beginning and new and fresh in Krishna consciousness. So here's a new canto, and in one sense, the third canto, it's just the same thing as the second canto and the first canto and the fifth canto. It's just the same old Krishna consciousness, right? It's all fresh and it's all new and it's shining new lights on it from different directions. So yes, it's all nice.
I'm just wondering, this canto also is like a part of the Mahabharata stories about Vidura and the Pandavas and
yes. Yeah, there's actually many Bhagavatam stories that are also retold in Mahabharata or in other Puranas, things like that, and looking sometimes with minor differences or looking at it from different angles. But yeah, this is also described more elaborately. Here it's actually described quite briefly, but described more elaborately in the Mahabharata. Yes.
But the way Vidura was telling that, why he left that place and then went to forest, to meet with that Maitreya Muni.
Yeah.
And want to know more about these things. That was another thing, Prabhu. That was really very good. Thank you very much for nice explanation.
I'm just thinking, the Pandavas are special devotees, like Krishna is in constant companion, giving them constantly his association. So I'm just thinking, like, we as like fallen souls, so many things, to come to that stage, it will take take many lifetime.
Yeah, it may take a long haul, but at least we have the example of these great devotees, and we can gradually in this life. Prabhupada thought it was possible to become perfect in this life. And if it takes more than one life, then okay, what can you do? Keep on trying.
Yeah, I like to say that Krishna is ready to do anything for the Pandavas,
Yeah.
Messenger, chariot driver, everything that, and Krishna chose a special devotee to be his family members too,
Right.
like Kunti and the Pandava to be his cousin. So
Yeah.
Eternally liberated soul like Kunti and the Pandavas and
I think so. I don't have a specific reference at my fingertips, but I think these are all eternal associates of the Lord. Prabhupada did say about Arjuna that just like in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says, many lives both you and I have had, I remember them, but you do not. And Prabhupada said that Arjuna is the eternal associate of Krishna. He appears with him all the time, but he may not remember them because he's a jiva. So I think we could extrapolate to all of these amazing devotees, the Pandavas and Kunti and so many as being also eternally perfected, eternal associates of the Lord. Sure. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attention. I hope everyone has a wonderful day up there in Philly.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
All glory.
Thank you,
so much,
Acharya
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Bihari.
It's very nice, Prabhu.
Kripa sindhubhyacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Prabhu.
Thank you.